All right, so here's the verdict on the PS5 Pro working with the PSVR2 so far. Now, I really should put a bit of a disclaimer at the start of this. This is all obviously based on my experience, and it's going to be different for other people. And that might be because of your eyesight. Like, I fairly recently got reading glasses for the first time in my life. I was spending a couple of years holding things at arm's length to be able to read them, and I finally conceded that I could do with a bit of help. So I got some glasses for reading. Although my distance vision is okay, I think it's fine. I did have a prescription, so it's possible that other people will see things differently to me, see things clearer. And I make that disclaimer specifically because there's, in terms of sharpness, detail, clarity, I didn't see a lot of difference in the games that have supposedly had or have had a pro patch. So I started with Arken Age and jumped into it for the very first time whilst doing this comparison. Only bought it a couple of days ago. And if I'm honest, I really didn't see a difference in terms of the clarity, resolution, detail between the base PS5 and the PS5 Pro, although they have said that they've added 15% in resolution on the Pro patch, or 25% if you use the quality mode, which of course I think the quality mode is running at reprojection, and of course performance at 90 Hz native. But if I'm honest, I didn't actually see a massive difference between any of those modes, whether it is performance or quality. But I haven't spent a very long time in there yet, so that might become more apparent as you get into large areas, more detailed areas, that kind of thing. So the first game that I tested was Arken Age, and I just really didn't see the difference there. But it might be because of me. I might need to get lenses. It's something I'm going to consider because other people have said it's made a big difference, even if they didn't have or didn't feel like they needed a prescription in terms of actually needing glasses in the day-to-day life. And even if you've got a very mild prescription, people have said that it can make a big difference in VR. So it is something that I'm going to think about in the future, is getting inserts, prescription lenses for my PSVR2, just to see if it makes a difference. It'll be interesting. I mean, games don't look blurry to me. My eyes aren't that bad at distance, or whatever the focal range is that the PSVR2 has you focusing on. I think is it around 2 meters? I think my vision is fine for that, but it'll be worth checking out. So yeah, Arken Age, really didn't see much of a difference. But the next one, see, this is where it gets weird. So Arken Age had a pro patch. It's advertised as such. There was, announcements about it. It was talked about in the gaming media. It had a dedicated pro patch, and I really didn't see a difference that I could tell. Really, I thought it looked great in any mode, right, on the base PS5 and on the Pro. But the next game that I tried has not had a pro patch, and yet I saw a very noticeable difference, and that was in HappyFunLand. So HappyFunLand, yeah, no pro patch, and yet this looks a lot better on the PS5 Pro, and that's because it gets rid of the stutter that this game has. And it's a real shame that that game has it, because I enjoyed it for what it was. It's very atmospheric, it's different. It's got this dark sort of spooky atmosphere. Obviously, you've got you walking through this like sort of evil Disneyland, even more evil than the real one, you know what I'm saying? But that game had quite noticeable stutter, and that's different to reprojection. It also has some reprojection artifacts, I believe, but stutter is different to reprojection, and it's something that really spoils the game for me. I mean, I still did enjoy this game. I played it all the way through, and I enjoyed my time with it, but it's certainly true that had I played this without the stutter, if I'd played it on the Pro, I definitely would have enjoyed my time with it a bit more, because it was something that was quite frequently jarring, quite frequently something that you'd notice and sort of bring you out of the immersion. And I've said before that higher fidelity the graphics are in a VR game, the less friction there is, and the more sort of immersed you can feel, the more sort of, give yourself to the experience of believing that you're really in this strange place. But when there's sort of graphical issues, it becomes more difficult to have that sort of Narnia feeling about being in those game worlds. And yeah, if I'd have played this on the Pro, it definitely would have been a smoother experience. So it was really nice to see that the Pro got rid of the stutter in this game, despite there being no patch for it. So I don't know why that is, but it's much appreciated. There's not a lot of games that have that kind of issue, though. Most games on PSVR2 are optimized pretty well now. We're not seeing it very often where games are having those sort of graphical issues. That's quite a rarity, really. So I don't know how often that sort of quirk will apply in terms of the Pro upgrading the graphical experience of a game despite there being no patch. It might not be something that's very common, like relevant very often, but yeah, definitely an improvement in this. If you played this, or if you were thinking about playing this and you maybe heard about some of the graphical issues, I'd say if you got a Pro, it's much more worth checking out on there. I did take some footage, and maybe I've shown it during this little spiel, maybe I haven't. That depends whether or not you can see it in the video. I'm not sure. I haven't really reviewed it yet. I'll do that after filming this, but in the headset it's very different, very noticeable that stutter is gone. I'm not sure if it's going to translate in the screen that you get on the video that you record from footage. Right, the next one I tried was Vertigo 2, and again, no Pro patch, but there is a noticeable improvement in performance, and that is that it's got less dropped frames. Again, it's less. So this is different to HappyFunLand. I wouldn't say it's not stutter in the same way that HappyFunLand had, but it's similar. It's kind of like a frame rate issue that it drops frames on the base PS5, and it certainly does it less on the Pro. I wouldn't say it eliminates it entirely, but it is smoother. It certainly is smoother. It certainly does drop frames less often, and again, that's just nice for a more comfortable experience. So again, no patch, but a noticeable improvement, and so that was cool. So I'm glad that I waited to play this now. I'll play it on the Pro, and it'll be a bit of a smoother experience. Yeah, what else to say about that? Yeah, it's just, again, maybe it's my eyes, but I tend to notice things like frame rate, stutter, frame drops. Those things pull me out of the game more than something like a low resolution. I can enjoy a game that's got a relatively low resolution as long as it's smooth. It doesn't bother me too much, because once you're in the moment and you're sort of engaged in the games and you're just sort of losing yourself in experience, the detail, the clarity of a game, obviously to a certain degree, if it's very blurry, if it's very low resolution, yes, that can be a problem. But on the whole, we're sort of splitting hairs in terms of resolution. Most games have got a fairly good resolution, if not great these days. It's the bar is certainly raising in that regard. But yeah, frame drops, smoothness of the games, something that really I notice and helps with immersion if it's smoother. Right, the next one that I tried, I'll go through the physical ones first because I've got a few boxes here, so I may as well. Right, I also tried OVRDARK. Gorgeous game, whether you're playing it on base, PS5 or Pro. Gorgeous, really cool game, like a spooky haunted house theme puzzle game, but very, very nice looking in the headset. I did notice a little bit of a difference on the Pro. On the base PS5, I did notice a little bit of judder, but not often, only like in isolated moments. And even testing it, going back to the same place where I saw it, I didn't see it the second time. So it's a bit inconsistent. But on the Pro, there was no judder at all. No sort of, and it's not reprojection exactly, it's something else, but certainly linked to frame rate and smoothness of the frame rate. But yeah, it did seem to eliminate the sort of infrequent sort of judder that I sometimes saw in this game. But again, it's not a big problem. It was only a couple of times I saw it on base PS5, and overall, absolutely gorgeous. But again, I think this might have had. I seem to remember somewhere seeing that the developers had said that there was an improvement on Pro for this game. So I don't know if it officially got a patch. It doesn't say so on the store, but it does seem to have made a little bit of an improvement. Right, the next two games are probably quite high profile in terms of, well, in terms of the games themselves anyway, but also in terms of them getting a pro patch. The first one is No Man's Sky. Obviously, this team just keeps patching, adding more content, improving the performance. Now, I have to be honest, I didn't feel like I saw a huge difference on this game between the base and the pro. But that's because there is, at the moment, quite noticeable judder and quite noticeable reprojection. But apparently that was a recent issue caused by the recent update. And this team's obviously very good at going back in and clearing up those things and making sure that any performance issues that are introduced by new updates are ironed out. So I'm sure that this will eventually be running as smooth as it can, and we'll see some benefit on the Pro. They've certainly said that they've increased the resolution, the detail on the Pro. So when they get that reprojection issue, the judder issue sorted out, I'm sure this will look fantastic. It did seem to eliminate a couple of sort of visual artifacts that were occurring on the base PS5 around trees. There's like these weird outlines across the trees in front of the skies. But again, I don't know if that's an artifact caused by the recent update and it's something that they will patch out. But yeah, so far at the moment, probably not the best time to review the difference on Pro for that game because I'm sure they'll come back and sort those issues out. But the next one, Gran Turismo 7. Now then, quite significant. This has a Pro patch and it has a new system of reprojection. Oh God. If only, I don't know the ins and outs of this, but apparently there is a different type of reprojection that can be used, and it's called positional reprojection. And it's certainly a lot cleaner. It's basically fixed the reprojection. I don't know if it can be used on the base PS5. We've not heard a lot of talk about it. I've only ever heard about it in relation to this game. So whether it's Sony firmware that can be introduced to other games, or whether it's something that's exclusive to this game, or how common it's going to be, I don't know. But it absolutely fixes the reprojection in this game. So if you ever played this and you look to the side, for example, if you're going past trees or a crowd, you would have seen very severe ghosting, like doubling up. Like every person on the stand, there'll be two of them stood next to each other, identical, like just really bad ghosting on the crowds, especially where it's most noticeable, but also on any scenery really, if you turn your head and look to the side. With this new reprojection system, that's gone. It's absolutely clear. And it gives you the feel of it being, we associate that sort of clarity of like that with 90 Hz native. I don't think it's running at 90 Hz native on the Pro. I think it's still reprojected, but it's using this new reprojection system called positional reprojection, and it's a lot better. It eliminates the ghosting. Very happy about that. But I didn't know that immediately, because when I first jumped into it, tried it on the Pro, it was exactly the same, and I was shocked because I was like, everyone's been raving about the fact that this game is fixed now on the Pro. Fixed. There wasn't really anything wrong with it. You have to turn on the new reprojection system in the option menus. So you go into settings, in the graphical settings, and you can find positional reprojection in there and turn it on. It's not default, but it does sort that problem out that people have with this game. Not that it never really mattered a huge deal to me in the first place, because you only really saw those artifacts when you turned your head and looked all the way to the left or to the right. And you don't really do that very often. You're usually looking forward. And when you're looking forward on Gran Turismo 7, it looks fine, it looks really good. But it does look better on the Pro with that new reprojection system. Right, I've got a few digital ones that I looked at now. So I'm just going to scroll the notes that I've got. So Cyube. Cyube is a beautiful game on the base PS5. To me, I didn't see a huge difference. I think it might have been a little bit clearer, a little bit more detailed in the graphics, but I can't say that it was like night and day. I had a feeling that it might have looked a little bit better, but again, it already looks gorgeous on base PS5, so you're not missing out at all with this slight upgrade to the graphics on there. But it's still certainly got ghosting. So Cyube, I believe, must be using reprojection because it's got pretty noticeable ghosting. And I did, again, take some footage of this. Again, I'm not sure if it's going to come out on the clips or whether it's something you only notice in the headset, but maybe I've had a couple of the clips running side by side just to see if you can tell the fact that it's the same really on this one. But I did do some comparisons for some of these games in that way. So for Cyube, already gorgeous. For me, I didn't really see much difference. Maybe a little, but it might be psychosomatic. I don't know. Right, the next one that I tried was Kayak. So Kayak VR, again, or Cyube, again, sorry, I should have mentioned Cyube did announce that they have got a dedicated Pro patch. So they have, and that's on the store as well. It does say PS5 Pro enhanced. But again, I didn't see much of a difference. I really wish that they would use the power of the Pro to try and make Cyube 90 Hz native. Even if they had to drop down the graphical fidelity a little bit, I think what you would gain in the smoothness of the frame rate and losing that ghosting would be far more important, far more impactful for immersion and comfort in the game than a little bit more detail in an already very beautiful game. So yeah. The next game that I tried was Kayak, another game that has officially got a PS5 Pro enhanced tag on the store. And I think it might have been a little bit clearer, but again, Kayak is already gorgeous on base PS5. It's absolutely beautiful. It's one of those rare VR games where every now and again you'll catch yourself really feeling like you are in another world. Like, it's just so beautiful. It's down to the use of HDR. The colours really pop. Beautiful contrast and graphics in general. It's got to be 90. It's got to be. Is it 90? But it feels like it's 90 Hz native. Very smooth. Beautiful game. And I maybe felt like I saw a little bit clearer. But again, that might be something that I appreciate more on the Pro. If I get lens inserts, we shall see. We'll find out just how blind I actually am when I get those inserts. But again, not missing out on the base PS5. Already looks beautiful, but it still had pop-in on the Pro. So that's what I was a little bit surprised by. And for a little while, I was convinced that there was more pop-in on the Pro, but that's probably because I was expecting it to have gone. And it is the only sort of graphical, it's Kayak's graphical Achilles heel. And it's a shame they couldn't get rid of that. Or in my mind, they should have really sort of downgraded the graphics just a little bit if it allowed them to get rid of the pop-in. Because that's one thing that can sort of distract you in this gorgeous world that you're in. When you see, it's quite noticeable, obviously, when you see those textures popping in from time to time. So that's still there on the Pro. So again, for Kayak, for me, it has a patch for the Pro, but it really wasn't something to write home about. Okay, next one was Subside. So again, Subside has a Pro patch. Again, beautiful game on the base PS5. Super clear, super immersive, smooth. And on the Pro, the large fish had shadows. And that is the only difference that I noticed. I'm not shitting you. It's Pro enhanced. The fish have shadows. Well, the big ones. That's literally the only difference that I saw, at least with my potentially not 2020 vision. Oh, it's definitely not 2020. Yeah, so Subside Pro Patch, not worth the price of admission, but beautiful regardless. So again, it's not that it's to its detriment. It's just that to me, didn't really get any significant improvement on the Pro. So next, I tried some games that that haven't had a Pro patch, but like HappyFunLand, I did wonder whether they'd get some boost anyway. So I tried Big Shots, because to me, Big Shots had quite noticeable sort of ghosting and some sort of visual artifacts in terms of the smoothness of the graphics. It might have been a bit smoother on the Pro, no patch, but to me, it did feel potentially that it might be a little bit less ghosting. But again, nothing major. The next one that I tried was Arizona Sunshine 2, because it's one of the games that does have reprojection. It's quite noticeable at times. Exactly the same on the Pro. Exactly the same, but beautiful game. Yeah. The next one I tried was Synth Riders. So again, no Pro patch, but this definitely is smoother. It definitely has a smoother frame rate, to the point where it almost feels like a higher frame rate. And I don't know how the Pro could sort of affect frame rate without there being a patch, but and it's not something I didn't even notice on the base PS5 that this was an issue. It's not I wouldn't call it an issue on Synth Riders. It runs smooth enough, and it's certainly an example of one of the of most VR games, I guess, but especially rhythm action games, that once you're in it and you're sort of in the moment and you're just playing the game, that's all you're really focused on is the game part of the game. You're not really concerned about the fidelity of the graphics, especially for me in rhythm action games, because it's so involved and it's obviously the gameplay is based around the music, not so much the graphics. The graphics are really just functional. And Synth Riders to me always felt smooth enough anyway. I didn't have any issue with the graphics on Synth Riders until somebody pointed out that it's smoother on the Pro, and it certainly is. But I had to really look for the sort of, I wouldn't say it's not choppy at all on the base PS5, but I had to really look for issues with frame rate to notice it. I had to really pay attention in order to recognize that, oh yeah, I can see some of the sort of backgrounds sort of a little bit like that. And on the Pro, smooth. So it's a different. You can see these bits of scenery moving past, and if you look at them, which you never do because you're always looking forward on Synth Riders to hit the targets, but if you do look to the sides, you will notice that it sort of does that a little bit. And on the Pro, it's smooth. So yes, it is improved, but again, it's not like it's a detriment on the base PS5. And then I played Dead Hook as well. Didn't see much of a difference there. It has got resolution, sort of kind of low resolution, but again, really fun game, smooth. I think that's all of the games that I tried. Yeah, that's all I've got on my list here. So, final verdict. Currently, if you're thinking about getting a PS5 Pro for the PSVR2, I would not say it's worth the price of admission. I mean, I managed to get a little bit of a discount on mine. It retails for 700, 699. I got mine for around 610 after a couple of sort of offers, sale offers. But yeah, it is, I would say, if you're thinking about it, it is not worth the price of admission right now. There's not a big enough difference. This might change in the future when they activate PSSR for PSVR2, because that really could allow developers to increase performance quite a lot using this artificial intelligence upscaling technique. Really could be significant. But again, that's something that will require developers to go in and actually patch up the games and spend time and money on increasing performance for a tiny percentage of the market. So I don't know how common that's going to be. I don't know how common it's going to be for studios to really sort of do that. I mean, it's really hard to predict these things because some of the games that I've just run through are made by tiny teams. I think Cube was made by one guy. I might be wrong, but very, very small teams have made some of these games, and they have managed to do pro patches. You know, again, whether I personally have seen a huge difference, they've certainly done that. They've gone into their games, and like Arken Age has got basically 4 different modes that you can choose from between the 2 consoles, performance, quality, and they've all got different parameters of performance. On quality mode on Arken Age, you can even go in and really micromanage the graphics to a ridiculous degree for a console game. We're not used to that level of control over the graphics. So very small teams have found the time to do pro patches. So hopefully, it's when PSSR comes to PSVR2, it's going to be an easy thing. It's going to be some firmware that Sony give them. It's just the flicker switch, and it allows them to use that upscaling technique to then increase the performance of the game. And we'll see where that goes. The equation might be different when that comes to pass. But currently, I've got to say, I don't think it's worth it. If you're minted, like if you are just rolling in money and you want the absolute best, even if it's just a little bump, then of course go for it. And on rare occasions where it does make a difference, like for me, weirdly, even though there's no patch, HappyFunLands would have been noticeably better. My playthrough would have been noticeably more enjoyable had I played this on the Pro, with the lack of judder that was sort of an issue on the base PS5. But and GT7, of course, GT7's new reprojection system is noticeable, and that is nice. But on the whole, you're not missing out. You're really not. These games look beautiful anyway on the base PS5, and studios are really learning to squeeze the most out of that system. And of course, PS5 was built with VR in mind, so that might be part of the reason there. So part of my motivation for getting the Pro was having had such a good experience with the PS4 Pro in conjunction with PSVR1. But of course, that's a very different situation because the PS4 was not built with VR in mind. Sony sort of cobbled together PSVR1, obviously bringing in old tech with the Move controllers. They had this breakout box. It was like this Frankenstein sort of, they managed to sort of Frankenstein of VR together for PS4, but it really wasn't built for it. And of course, all of a sudden, you're asking a console that's not built for it to output 2 displays simultaneously to create this 3D image. And so the PS4 Pro, did make a significant difference. You had games like Skyrim that just looked a lot clearer. It was quite blurry on base PS4, and then it was noticeably clearer on the PS4 Pro. So in that regard, I was glad that I had the Pro for PSVR 1. For this, I'm future-proofing. I'm future-proofing my setup, really. I jumped on a little sale. I've made a deal with myself to do some overtime to be able to afford it and not be out of pocket, because it's very expensive for a very meager bump in performance currently. So we'll see where we go with this, but that is my opinion so far on the PS5 Pro in conjunction with PSVR 2. All right, guys, I hope you found this useful and entertaining. I'll see you in the next vid. Bye-bye.